not been listening. The people in power have not been listening.
I come here for a climate demonstration, not a political view. This is climate demonstration.
Calm down. Calm down. Calm down. No climate justice on occupied land. No climate justice on occupied land.
Yeah, so I think the left definitely ran out of people to cancel, so they're probably canceling themselves, as you could see from that particular video. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. My name is Zurkadowski here of wearechange.org, and we have an incredible show for you for the next 2 hours that will transpire here on this particular platform and then get pretty spicy and go off to rumble.com/wearechange. We have a packed house here today with a lot of very interesting people. One Miami woman who's late. Who would have thought? People from Miami, especially the female kind, are late, as of course Stephanie and Clint are running shotgun here, as we have a lot of very important issues to get into, as of course we just got breaking news from ABC News surrounding the larger political persecution of Donald Trump. There's a lot of crazy news also going off, particularly inside of the Middle East with a northern conflict in Israel. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about the fats. We're going to be talking about birth control, plus a lot more, all here for the next 2 hours. So make sure you share this broadcast with your friends and family members. And if you want to participate in this broadcast, you now can by becoming a member of LukeUnfiltered.com. It's quick, it's easy. Just sign up, and as soon as you do, you get access to a Telegram channel that we are monitoring right now. You could send us clips, you could send us articles, you could actually even call in at the end of the broadcast. Signing up, again, quick, easy. Click here, join, and then you will be able to get into the Telegram and be able to, of course, have conversations with all the guests that we have here on this broadcast. We, of course, will be answering super chats and also answering people who super chat on mysuperchat.com, our own website that only takes 3% of the fees from super chat, as of course YouTube takes 30. That's a lot of percentage points that we are winning if you go to mysuperchat.com. We're going to be reading all of those throughout the day. As of course, lots of news, lots of really spicy conversations. Joining us for this conversation is Lauren. Lauren, who are you for the people who have never heard of you?
Hello, I am Lauren. I go by Lauren De Laguna on all the socials, and I am a recent law school graduate, just passed the bar in 2 states, waiting on my license, and I'm doing podcasts, great podcasts like this one, whatever, Fresh and Fit, Ricada, all the cool ones, so yeah.
Sweet. Perfect for the conversation today, especially with the latest news that just broke with the Donald Trump prosecution in Georgia. Clint is also here. He's, you're not a legal expert. You're,
No.
What kind of expert are you?
I just make things up, and then I assert them as fact, and then everybody agrees.
Just like almost everyone on the internet.
Just
Clint.
like a legal expert.
Yes.
I am the host of Liberty Lockdown. I'm also the co-host of Tower Gang, as well as this fine program right here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in once again. I am very excited. I will be on Timcast IRL with Dave Smith on Wednesday night. Do not miss it. And my fine co-host right here.
Hello, everyone. I am Steph of We Are Change. You can find me on Instagram at Steph We Are Change.
And I forgot, we have a website. We have thebestpoliticalshow.com that Stephanie actually thought of the name of, which was brilliant. You can now go to thebestpoliticalshow.com and you could check out the live stream that we have here that should be streaming right now. And you could watch all the episodes that we have for everyone so far. I think we have now 13 episodes. The debate thing should be an episode here. So technically this is episode 14. We have a lot of episodes. We have a lot of very controversial figures that are going to be coming on the show, as I'm talking to a lot of really crazy individuals that, of course, will be joining us for some very spicy conversations in the not-so-distant future. But let's just get into the main story right now. As just moments ago, ABC News is reporting that they have obtained a video from a Georgia prosecutor interviewing the ex-Donald Trump attorney Jenna Ellis, who raised a lot of funds for her legal defense fund, by the way, and was essentially given what a lot of people have called a slap on the wrist with her latest cases and charges. And ABC News is reporting that Ellis was telling prosecutors that she was personally informed by a, quote, top Trump advisor that Trump was not going to leave the White House despite losing the 2020 election. Very important statements from Jenna Ellis that, of course, are going to be playing all throughout this election cycle, as there's going to be a lot of revelations, a lot of up and downs. There's going to be probably October surprises every single week with the way that we are going with this election cycle. But Lauren, what do you think are some of the larger ramifications here with this kind of admission? Is this something that is going to get Donald Trump in hot water?
I don't know. It's I think anything gets him in hot water. He'll blow his nose and he'll get in hot water. However, that being said, I just don't know why she's able to make these statements. Obviously, she was told these statements. If a Trump advisor gave her these statements to be a legal information for the benefit of Trump, I'm not sure she has the right to be expressing private information that was given to her under attorney-client privilege. So I find the whole setup very interesting to prevent her from leaking more information or what the situation is here. It's extremely complex.
If you're Donald Trump, who do you trust when you can't even have attorney-client privilege?
Right.
Anytime I meet a lawyer, I give them $1. They're like, "What do you give me?" I'm like, let's just talk. I did this. I'm going to do this to Viva Frey and Robert Barnes, and I was like, "Hey guys, we're going to become friends, whether you like it or not. I'm probably going to need you guys." So with what's happening right now with essentially the weaponization of the DOJ.
I think that it's very strange. I also don't think that it's necessarily true, or why that would be relevant to Donald Trump, given that someone in his cabinet said that they thought that he wasn't going to leave once he lost the election. Like that's such a hearsay, third person. Why is that relevant at all? And it's very frustrating that this narrative continues to be pushed. He did leave the White House. What does it matter? To quote Hillary Clinton, at this point, what difference does it make? He left the White House, for God's sakes. What are we talking about this still for? It's bizarre.
And that's what a lot of people are responding to in the comment section of this story on Twitter. One of the few actual websites that allows comments. I remember just even a few years ago when all the media organizations had comments, they got rid of all of them because people would call them out on their bullcrap. One of the first comments that we're reading here, particularly with this story, Steph, do the browser whenever I'm bringing up anything up here. One is by Brittany Rowe, who says, "Whoever leaked this is brilliant. Whole case is in shambles." That's another important justification here to understand the larger kind of legalities here. Another person, the Contro, can't say this word, IG group, said, "Cool story. He left the White House." So this is a completely meaningless story, and I absolutely agree. Another person here tweeted an image of Judge Judy. Spoiler alert, Trump did, in fact, leave. So is this the Democrats trying to make something out of nothing? And is this normal that this kind of video footage is out there?
No, it's completely abnormal for an attorney to be talking about what information she was gathering while representing a client, even if it wasn't information directly from the attorney or from the client themselves. It's actually completely despicable. I don't know how. Hopefully this will actually really backfire against them and the whole case will be thrown out, hopefully, but that seems unlikely because of everything that Trump has been going through. It seems like a lot of kangaroo court. He hasn't been given the benefit of the doubt in almost any situation, especially with that essay situation. When he privately was sued, he has not had any leeway in the courts whatsoever.
Well, what I don't understand is why is this being released from ABC News? I mean, I would assume this is some sort of testimony from her to get out of prosecution because she took a plea deal, right?
Okay, if she already took the plea deal, though, then what benefit does she have to continue to leak attorney-client privileged information?
No, I think that this is probably testimony during the plea deal process.
If it's part of the plea deal, then it's still that would be really
unprofessional.
Extremely unprofessional. An attorney is supposed, when they are tasked with doing something that would put their clients at risk like that, they're supposed to say, I cannot, and be held in contempt for the benefit of their client. You're supposed to, like, this is multiple ethics violations.
It's like what journalists are supposed to do with their sources. They're supposed to go like, if the government comes for my sources, I'll go to jail. I'm not going to put my sources on the line. That's kind of what the attorneys with their attorney-client privilege are supposed to do too. It just seems as if like the Trump phenomenon has really demonstrated that very few people in media, in law, all just across the board actually have any principles to speak of. It's disappointing.
If she really wanted to, like if she was seeing things that were going wrong while she was representing Trump, she could have made internal notifications, and she could have documented this internally. And then when it came time for her own criminal trial, she could have said, hey, look, I've been documenting this internally since this date, and here's actually what's been happening. And they can deal with it privately without having to reveal all of Trump's private information. But the problem is the reason you have attorney-client privilege is so people can rely on attorneys in the future.
Right.
And so this makes a huge trust issue for people in the future if the government is able to just require attorneys.
Well, my question is, though, is the government leaking this information to ABC because they want it in the public view? Because, you know, she takes a plea deal, she's kind of out of the picture, but then all of a sudden they're leaking, testimony during that period. It's very frustrating. Luke, is it possible to play that? It's only 1 minute clip. I'd just like to hear what she has to say exactly, so we make sure it's not taken out of context.
Hold on 1 second.
Sure.
And let me try to pull that up for everyone. We were dealing some issues with the stream, and it froze for a little bit, but now we're fine. So if you're watching and hearing us, refresh the stream, and everything should be working fine there. But I'm going to play this audio clip from ABC News that, of course, is running with this headline right now.
Okay. And at the time period where they were going to start to discuss, what was Dan Scavino's role?
At the time, I believe his title was social media director for the White House. It became deputy chief of staff at the time that the conversation in question took place.
Okay, and when was that?
The conversation was around December 19th of 2020 at the White House Christmas party. And I emphasized him. I thought that the claims and the ability to challenge the election results was essentially over, because he said to me in a kind of excited tone, well, we don't care and we're not going to leave. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, the boss, meaning President Trump, and everyone understood the boss, that's what we all called him. He said the boss is not going to leave under any circumstances. We are just going to stay in power. And I said to him, well, it doesn't quite work that way, you realize. And he said, we don't care.
Okay. And
yeah. What's your response to that, Clint?
Well, first off, it's not Trump saying it, so it's not really relevant. But also, we now have empirical evidence that he did leave. So I just, for the life of me, why is this still a debatable topic?
I think we're going to have a lot of different revelations coming out throughout this whole entire election cycle. As, of course, you go into Google News, you go to Alphabet News, and it's just, you type in Trump, and it's just nonstop coverage. CNN News, live updates, Donald Trump Jr. testifies. AP News, Donald Trump Jr. returns. The New Republic, Trump's idiot lawyer shares faulty evidence in fraud trial. Again, that doesn't seem like a very, fair and balanced title there. That really doesn't seem like, fine journalism there. As, of course, Washington Post, Trump calls political enemies vermin, echoing dictator from World War II in Germany and Italy. And again, how's that the Washington Post? Again, this is not news. This is not coverage. And I think another aspect here that a lot of people need to kind of understand while reading and dissecting all the news here is that the more that they attack them, the more popular they actually make them. Because if you look at where Donald Trump was before these indictments were announced, he wasn't doing that well. And then indictment after indictment after indictment after indictment, his poll numbers keep going up and up and up. This is a very strange political cycle, as, of course, usually when a candidate doesn't show up to debates, their poll numbers go down. Donald Trump's numbers have been rising, and I think this case highlights a kind of loss of legitimacy by the corporate media that is just doing everything they can. Or what if it's a psyop within a psyop? What if the powers that be know that, hey, Let's just get Donald Trump in there. Again, that's my conspiracy minded. That's my tinfoil hat here. Maybe I'm far too wrong, but maybe I'm right here, because if you're the establishment and you're going after Trump so aggressively and you're only making him more of a martyr, why continue to do it? That's a question that I ask myself.
A lot of people are trying to make it so that he can't run again legally, but there's contention about whether or not it's constitutional to prevent him from running simply because he's charged with crime. So that's where that's at. There's a lot of people who are thinking that if he's physically in prison, that would prevent him from becoming president. So it doesn't matter what his poll numbers do if he's literally behind bars.
A lot of the right-wing commentators are like, we'll get the black vote this way. And I'm like, hey, there's some implications behind those statements there that I don't think a lot of people realize. Clint, you had something to say?
Well, I think that he's going to get a lot of people that feel as if they're oppressed by the state to support him. I was on with Tom Woods this morning.
That's a nice litigious way of saying what I just said.
Well, but I mean, I'm not a black dude that's dealt with the law, but I still I've said this. I told Tom Woods this morning. I was like, the only way you could possibly get me to vote for Donald Trump is if he's behind bars on some BS charges. Like that's the most compelling argument to support him that I've ever heard, because I want someone who's actually being, persecuted in the way that I feel that the state would like to persecute me.
The argument is, though, if he is behind bars, even if the people vote for him to be president, he'll still be disqualified under other amendments for inability to do his duty.
I think that's unlikely,
president.
though, because as president, couldn't he pardon himself?
It depends. Well, you can only pardon yourself for federal. First of all, I don't know if anyone's
state
ever
charges
charged.
he couldn't.
So he has a lot of state charges. So like if he's behind bars, he won't be able to do his presidential duties that are required of him.
To answer Luke's question, I think that it's the reason that they continue to do it, even though it's helping his poll numbers, is because they're trying to remove him from a handful of swing state ballots. And I think that's a distinct possibility. I honestly do.
We got a super chat from AQI Audits, who says, it is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. Judy Krishnamurti. I'm probably saying that wrong. But you know what I'm trying to say here. As of course, thank you for your super chats. We're going to be reading a lot of them as of course we move on here with this particular conversation that I think is absolutely important, because I just kind of wanted to ask you directly, Lauren, what do you think is going to be happening here? What's the over under with these charges, with these cases, with these indictments? Do you think he's going to be arrested, and do you think he's going to be able to become the next president of the United States because of that? Give me the raw numbers here. What's the data say?
I think, okay, well, I haven't, this is a lot of guesstimation here. My guess is that he would likely win in terms of, at least for the Republican nomination. I think he will absolutely win that. Whether he wins the general, I could have sworn he was going to win last time. We have a lot of issues with our voting system. So to say that he's going to win the general, that's extremely difficult to determine with the current issues we have, especially if Wu Flu 2.0 comes along. And is he going to get arrested? Yeah, I see that as a high possibility. Asked me last year, I would have said, heck no. There's no way any politician of that level is going to get arrested. It's just something that we don't do. We never arrested the Clintons, even though they committed crimes. We never arrested Biden. We just don't arrest people at that level, because otherwise it would turn into a banana republic. But we're beyond that, and they're out for blood. I think he's going to get arrested.
I mean, there's presidents before us in our lifetimes that literally extrajudiciously assassinated 16-year-old American citizens, and they were never held accountable for those particular actions that they personally literally signed off on, which is absolutely crazy that a president could do that.
He won a Nobel Peace Prize, for God's sakes.
Exactly. And again, this is an issue. I don't know if you're familiar with this particular issue, but again, there's time and time again where the president did something absolutely outlandish. What happened, especially with the rendition programs, the torture programs, the lies to get us into war. There are so many actual real things that politicians have done that has led to tremendous, horrible effects and death to so many people. And we're holding someone accountable for essentially paperwork or overvaluing their property. Are you freaking kidding me? That is not a rule of law. That is a kangaroo court. We are living in a two-tier justice system that has been essentially weaponized. But I think the majority of the American people are realizing. So this upcoming election, I think, is going to be extremely dangerous, because we're moving in a way where the system wants to stop Trump at all costs. And this avenue is not working. So what is going to be their next avenue of attack against Donald Trump that they're going to be doing everything they can to stop him from becoming the next president of the United States?
Oh gosh, that's scary. When
Yeah.
you talk about
Yep.
how everything just keeps on escalating, and then if you're talking about literally throwing him behind bars not working, then what's the next escalation
Exactly.
past that?
Yeah.
Well, it's the 60th anniversary of JFK's assassination. Just saying.
Oh, nice.
Is that- is that today?
I believe it was today. Yeah.
No way.
I won't make it so explicit as to say that that's
That
the.
was pretty explicit. I felt like I made it decently explicit, but you were like, you took it right there.
No, November 22nd is when John F. Kennedy was assassinated.
Oh, I saw a tweet this morning that said it was the 60th anniversary.
if it's tweeted on the internet, it has to be true.
Well,
Clint.
look, I just assert things and then they become fact. That's how it works. So this is the anniversary. It happened. Look, I think that they're probably going to pull him from the ballot. What I find fascinating is that polling wise, he's dominating in a way that he never like it. This, I mean, obviously at this point he was just trying to get the nomination in the last go around in 2016. I mean, or 2015. But now in the swing states, he's up 4, 5, 8 points in many of the swing states, which is what he lost in 2020, which ultimately gave Biden the edge. So I think that he's in a position that, based off of a legitimate election, I think it's highly probable he will win. What I find fascinating is that the articles that they're writing about Donald Trump in his second term is like, Donald Trump is an existential threat to democracy because he intends to weaponize the system against us. And it's like, but that's what you're doing to him, you know? Like that, like everything that they're accused. And this has been the same story with Donald Trump for his entire political career, is that whatever they're guilty of, they accuse him of. The Russia collusion stuff, it was actually Biden and Ukraine that was colluding. And now it's down to this. Also the election interference. Time and time again, they accuse him of what they're doing, and them saying that they're going to weaponize the judiciary or the White House against his political opposition is like, y'all have already done it. That's what you're doing.
And
Yeah,
they're like, he's going to do it to us. And I'm like, yeah, this is why this was a bad idea in the first place, because we have Republican presidents, we have Democratic presidents, and I think right now the system is scrambling, but they're also running a dummy puppet flesh suit that is not all there. They're running a guy who, of course, can't even make coherent sentences. They're running up against a guy who could barely walk and talk, for frick's sakes. So they're setting themselves up for failure, but they're making the stakes so high that when Donald Trump probably is going to be the next president of the United States, when he comes into political office, his backlash against the people who went after him is going to be the same way. And this is why it's kind of creating a life or death situation, which is absolutely stupid, which is absolutely dangerous, and therefore needs to be absolutely de-escalated. Will Donald Trump be the one who de-escalates? Well, by everything that he's saying, probably not. Will
Would
the
you want
Democrats
him to?
This
No.
is the question. Do I want to
like,
see the
let's
state
say-
kind of implode and fight each other? Well, kind of.
No.
A little bit. I love to, you know.
Same.
No, but
Yeah.
I mean, like, let's say Trump somehow miraculously, became president, everything was good, and he's in office. Would you want him to go start persecuting his political enemies just the way that they persecuted him, for justice sake, for
No.
equal, for balance, or would it turn into a banana republic? And the problem is, we said, like, last time he was in office, he always said that he was going to, if I were president, Hillary, you'd be in jail. So we thought that he was going to do that the first time around. And when he didn't, that created major issues because he didn't do it. They came back with a vengeance. And
Right.
so
A very great question. I'm going to ask our audience on YouTube right now, should Trump prosecute his opponents? And then people are going to be able to vote yes and no. Personally, with the way that things have been kind of escalating in this pendulum swing, my initial kind of reaction, without giving it long kind of thought, is I would hope that there would be some kind of like truce. There would be some kind of de-escalation, that real, sinister, horrible individuals who have hijacked government would be held accountable in a reasonable way, but not where Donald Trump has to, of course, put down the iron fist, get rid of our civil liberties, destroy our literal limited rights that we still barely have left. I would hope it would be measured and correct, but also not in a way where it just spirals out of control. How do you do that in such a tumultuous, crazy situation? That's another question. But initially, my reaction, no, I wouldn't want to see it personally myself.
It's not that I don't want him to do what the Biden administration or the Clintons or whoever is responsible for all of these prosecutions against Trump have done. I don't want him to do that. What I do want him to do is prosecute the actual criminals, and they're plentiful. Like, it doesn't have to be his political opposition. I don't want him to go after his political opposition. I want him to go after the criminals. I want him to go after the Epstein flight log. I want him to go after everybody that's actually destroying this country and eating it from the inside out. Those are the people. This is the whole reason that Donald Trump had such an incredible momentum and was such an underdog and came out of nowhere and won the presidency, is because a lot of people, rightly or wrongly, believed he was going to be that guy. He wasn't that guy, and now the system is flipped on its head and it's coming for his jugular. Like, I don't want him to go after I don't, like, if Biden's not guilty of corruption in Ukraine, no, I don't want to see him prosecuted for that or impeached for it, for that matter. But if he is guilty, you better believe I want to see him put behind bars.
Yeah, that is true, but there's something to do with like prosecutorial discretion, where pretty much everybody is committing crimes
Every day.
Yeah, every day. And so you're just
I've never made $1 billion off of Ukraine. I don't know about you.
On average, there's so many laws on the books. An American, on average, breaks 7 laws a day.
So when you're in the position of power where you get to choose who is being prosecuted and who's not being prosecuted, it's even if somebody is like committing crimes, you might not have it might not be good for society to prosecute them in a lot of senses. So I typically disagree with this. Even my law school dissertation was against this very idea, and I am for prosecuting where you see wrong being done. That being said, you can't prosecute all the time, and once you get the power, it's hard not to direct that power towards people that you dislike. Oh, hello, Amy. Thank you for joining us, you Miami girly.
It looks like we have a late Miami woman arrived to the podcast. Who are you? What's your name? And for the people who don't know you, how would you introduce yourself?
Hey, guys. Sorry I'm late. That traffic from Fort Lauderdale to here was terrible. But my name's Amy. I had it around the wrong ear. Yeah, thank you. I am Australian, but I live here in Miami. And I guess what I do... well, I've always been a sales gal, so I currently work for Bet David Consulting, but I also am kind of in this like media world now as well. I have my own channel and, like to do cultural and a little bit of political commentary too.
Well, nice. Well, welcome to thebestpoliticalshow.com, as we have the best political show here, and the conversation is already heated. It's a very interesting one. So I mean, we got a lot of answers from the poll that we just ran on YouTube. I think we could pretty much show that to everyone here in the audience, but we already have a couple hundred votes, and overwhelmingly, a lot of people say Trump should prosecute his opponents as soon as he becomes the next president of the United States. That's, I guess, your position too, as well, Lauren.
Wow. I was kind of in the middle because there's positives and benefits, or pluses and negatives to it. That being said, I think he somewhat has to at this point to make it even. That being said, you don't want to be too gung-ho. I do not want this to become a banana republic. That being said, I want people to feel like there's some sort of justice, that it's not just the conservatives and the right who are persistently being prosecuted, especially the Trump people. Everyone in Trump's circle has been prosecuted, and it has been completely biased against him, and he has no one left to trust anymore, because anyone he could trust, they take away or they flip. Like, for instance, even that attorney in that little clip, the way that she was zealously describing Trump's social media manager, the way that she was describing him as like eager to tell her about, that was unnecessary information. As an attorney, you really know, okay, I only have to provide what is necessary for this. And she seemed eager to make Trump look poor, like be painted in a bad light. Why? Because she was flipped by the state because she got a deal.
Yes.
And so I think in order to make it even and to set boundaries again, he somewhat has to.
Well, it's not about evening the scales to me as much as it is like, if you want to even the actual scales, like to get to real equilibrium, look into Lindsey Graham.
Right.
Look into Mitch McConnell. Look into Mitt Romney. Look into all of their siblings and relatives that are profiting off of unnecessary, unconstitutional wars time and time again. Like, I would like to see a bipartisan just cleansing of every corrupt politician in our system. And until we have a leader that's actually willing to do that, a la El Salvador's, I think it's Bukele, that's basically what that dude did. He came in there and he just was like, we're going to clean up all of the corruption. We're going to get all of the gangs off the street, all of the, drugs, everything else. Like, I don't want to iron fist type, fascist leader.
Right.
I want a guy who actually uses the judicial system for what it's supposed to do, which is provide justice.
It's hard though because I agree with you. That being said, all of the conservatives you named are blue, are rhinos. So like you're not saying go after Matt Gaetz or Marjorie Taylor Greene or Lauren
if they're
Boebert.
corrupt, go for them.
Right, but the problem is once you get power, like you and I, we agree. So I don't see those people as corrupt, but I'm sure the left does. So once you have the power, then you get to choose who you think is corrupt, and then you get to attack who you. It's just problematic.
But isn't the judicial system supposed to not care
it's
about
supposed to be blind?
Yes.
That's why it has the Lady of Justice with the blindfold
Well,
on.
with Trump, the Lady of Justice has binoculars on. She's looking as closely as possible.
Has a microscope.
It's very much not blind.
Right.
Someone in the comment section said, "Show me the dude, and I'll show you the crime." And absolutely, as of course we are living in lawfare, we are living in a crazy time that's only going to get a lot crazier the closer we get to this next upcoming presidential election. And with a court proceeding going to be broadcasted to the American public on Super Tuesday, I think what we are going to discover is going to be changing a lot of people's minds and perceptions. We got another super chat here by Paul Wilson, who said, "Total transparency, declassify all files from JFK to Hunter laptop. We won't need to press charges." As of course, the court of public opinion is another very important court that a lot of people don't put a lot of significance on, but I think it's fair to say here plays a major role in all of this, as a lot of people are saying, hey, you punishing Donald Trump this extensively is only backfiring, and therefore we're going to be supporting him, leading us towards a very dangerous situation that we described here that I don't see peacefully resolving itself, because how in the world will it? As of course, there's even some conspiracy theorists saying that this is all meant to, of course, perpetrate a right-wing administration that really is going to put the fist down, which, again, anything and everything could happen here, especially with how just crazy things have gotten. Now, unless you guys have anything else to say about this particular issue, let's move on to the next story, which is a little bit less tumultuous, and that, of course, is the situation in the Middle East. As we are getting news reports and footage right now from Israel showing specifically heavy military reinforcements going towards the north of Israel, towards the border in Lebanon, where, of course, there is some scuttlebutt about a potential conflict that now could be happening between Hezbollah and Israel. As of course, now we're getting comments from Israeli Foreign Minister Eli Cohen saying, quote, "We are working on the borderline and deep within the territory to remove any threat, as already there has been significant fire and action and war and battles that have already started inside of northern Israel, southern Lebanon." And how is this situation going to unfold here? To me, is just another major escalation that should be called out, that I think should actually be dealt with in an appropriate fashion. Will it? Probably won't. What do you guys make of the latest news and developments happening in the Middle East right now?
I've unfortunately, it just looks like another front for a potential world war. As you guys already know, there's multiple U.S. carrier strike groups that are out in the Mediterranean. They are there specifically to try and dissuade other Muslim or Arab nations from attacking Israel while they implement their counterstrike into Gaza. So it makes me very nervous that there's yet another front that's potentially opening up. Iran is allegedly backing these militias in Syria as well as Iraq that have attacked U.S. troops. My answer, as is always the case, is to bring our freaking troops home so that we don't have to worry about these people attacking us. That would be a good start. But if we don't, and it doesn't look like we're likely to, well, then it just takes one missile bombardment to actually get through our defense system, and we lose a dozen troops, and then God knows what happens from there.
Yeah, all it takes is just one accident. People don't understand just how volatile and just how crazy this entire situation is, as the United States just launched a third strike on Syrian rebel groups that have been allegedly linked to attacks against U.S. soldiers in the region who are there siphoning off oil for some strange reason without the permission of the Syrian government. Again, the United States has a lot of different military installations in that particular region. I think, and I don't know if you agree with me, but I think the United States involvement in all of this complicates the situation, makes Israel a lot weaker, makes them dependent on the United States, and makes them a bigger target and enemy in the Middle East. Now, that's a very kind of nuanced talking point, but would you agree with that kind of sentiment, or do you have a different perspective here?
I personally don't like when the United States gets involved in any. I like trying to be a world superpower. I was briefly in the Air Force for 2 years, and so I have a lot of friends who are still serving and risking their lives for conflicts that they don't necessarily stand for, or for countries that aren't their own, is just not right. That being said, we have created this mess by being involved in world organizations and by promising and having certain connections with other countries and promising protection when we shouldn't be promising protection. Same with like Taiwan. And it's so majorly complicated that it actually brings me to tears, especially as a Jewish woman. Watching this entire conflict has been extremely difficult for me, especially because obviously I would just want to, it would be so much easier if I could just say, oh, I'm pro-Israel, like obviously, duh. But then you go on Twitter and you see all of the Israeli statist accounts just straight up lying and spreading propaganda. It makes it very difficult to know what is truly going on and to assess the situation fairly.
What type of propaganda are the accounts spreading?
They've been making lies about, like, I forget specifically what it was.
40 babies was the big one.
Oh, that was a huge one. Yeah, I don't know if you heard about that, but they said
right. And then when they went to look into it further, they were unable to get any confirmation of that. Right.
Well, it was one like radical settler troop who told a journalist outlet that journalism outlet coincidentally was very friendly with Bibi Netanyahu. Strikes me as highly propagandistic, and it was planted by a single, without any evidence, just one single story. And then on top of that, today the I forget which member of the Israel IDF came out and said it, but they said that they found some like Arab translation of Hitler's Mein Kampf in one of the children's rooms, and it's like, is it possibly true? Sure, but come on.
that would be, and how would they recognize that? Just like the likelihood of.
Well, it had a big like cartoon picture of Hitler on the front of it.
Oh, Lord Jesus.
Yes, exactly. So like, yeah, maybe it's true, but it's obvious war propaganda. And then simultaneously, oftentimes we'll see war propaganda that has led the American empire into these conflicts. And usually it's children.
You know what the biggest war propaganda has been for me that I don't get it. And like so October 7th was truly devastating, and what happened is disgusting and deplorable. That being said, the missing flyers posters throughout every single city in the United States, what benefit is that doing? Are we actually going to get these people home? Like, they're murdered, they're gone. And I get that you want to, give that message out there and make it permanent, but it just seems like that's not. It seems propaganda. It doesn't seem it seems BS.
Well, there's propaganda on both sides here, especially when it came to the attack on the hospital that some people were reporting killed 900 people, and then it was like, oh no, it was the hospital parking lot next to it, and it's like, oh yeah, it might have been a Hamas missile. And so again, who's telling the truth here? I think no one. I think truth is the first casualty of war, and when we're looking and ingesting a lot of the news here, I think we just have to be like, hey, it's probably propaganda. It's probably a lie. It's probably, even in some instances that I've seen shared online, video games, as people are taking clips from video games and they're saying, yeah, this is Gaza happening right now. And I'm like, hey, this is why we can't have nice things, because people are so emotionally invested in all of this. The stakes are so high for people that they're like, we need to lie in order to save lives. And I think this is the point where a lot of people have reached that there's no going back from, because how do you unwind this kind of massive emotional manipulation where people are so invested that they're willing to go above and beyond to try to make you believe just anything so you don't like the other side?
And to Lauren's point about the flyers, it's crystal clear to me that there's a domestic propaganda campaign to try and get. I'm not saying all of them that are put up are for that purpose, but the fact that it's put up so broadly, and then on top of that, you'll have speeches from Netanyahu as well as other Israeli, higher ups that will be in English. Like,
right?
Why?
Like, why? Yeah.
Why?
Who is that for?
But you know why? Because
Right.
it's supposed to hit us here, because they want the American people to be outraged about what happened, which we are. But then, as a consequence of that, it gets public opinion elevated, so that then larger and larger aid and military packages can be sent to Israel. To me, it's quite clear. And then on top of that, you have strike force or carrier strike groups that are in the Mediterranean, and it's like, well, if Hezbollah strikes them, all of a sudden America's at war with Lebanon as well as Hamas. It can get out of control very quickly.
It just kind of feels like, and this is going to sound kind of like too reductive possibly, but it feels like, our Ukraine attempt at making World War III isn't happening fast enough. Let's try another. Let's try another location.
That's the old war. No one cares about that conflict anymore. That one's outdated. That one's complaining. That one's not going too well for them. And I think they have definitely set their intentions to push that Ukrainian husky girl to the side and move towards a more voluptuous Israeli lady with great drilling potentials and another maybe Suez Canal that would be very plentiful and moist and wet for the United States and the international trade here that would work in the greater benefit of the U.S. military empire that, of course, is more interested towards controlling and influencing trade routes, which historically is where most of the conflicts usually have begun. So there's a lot of different things unwinding here, but the situation does not look good for the Ukrainians. It is bad, and it is tragic because I'm getting reports from some of the people I know there because I'm from Poland, and I know my family member, a large portion of my family is still there, so they're able to get news that is still largely kind of unfiltered than almost anyone else because they're right there in the region. They're getting the firsthand accounts there, and they're like, it is bad. It is absolutely tragic. It is absolutely horrific. The huge amounts of populations that have been wrecked, devastated, and eliminated for what?
Right.
For what reason? It's just sad beyond comprehension to understand the huge civilian life loss and the life loss of an entire generation that there's no going back from. And now we're saying, we'll do the same in Israel. Like, let's give Israel more weapons. Let's support them, just like we did the rebels inside of Syria, just like we did the rebels inside of Libya, just like we did the people inside of Iraq. And what happened afterwards? Those people were screwed over. Right. There was massive sectarian violence. There was massive amounts of bloodshed. And to me, this is why I am a non-interventionist and don't believe the United States meddling into this conflict is not helping Israel at all. And in my opinion, an actual detriment to Israel and the Israeli people, which if you actually really cared about, you would be, of course, considering their voices here more than ever. And sadly, we just kind of ignore them. And then we're like, all Jewish people are bad or all Palestinian people are bad. Again, just the conversations are absolutely toxic online. Yeah. No, it's crazy, and it makes it difficult because it's so toxic. The conversations are so bad. You just don't want to participate in it. You don't want to even be a part of it because it's so nasty and disgusting. And it's like, hey, can we just stop killing each other? Can we just stop murdering people? Can we stop?
Are you on the
blowing
side
each
of
other up?
Hamas, Luke?
Yes, I know, right? It's like and again, I didn't even say who, what, or where, but automatically people just jump on.
Oh, you're a Putin apologist now, Luke, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, look, if to play off your incredible sexual illusions during that entire rant, if we were just like out there fighting for the women of Ukraine and Israel, like put me on the front lines. Gorgeous human beings. But aside from that, no, thank you. No, I don't want to die.
Someone's single.
Yeah, I guess the benefit is, less Ukrainian men, more options for you out there.
You're going to have your pick of the litter in Ukraine.
Easier shooting your shot.
Yeah.
Well, most of the Ukrainian women have actually fled the country. They went to Western countries. And a lot of the men, if they're under the age of 60, they can't leave. They have to stay. They have to fight.
Even if they're actually trans women.
Yes, and there was multiple stories and incidences of essentially dudes with wigs on trying to be like, no, I'm a woman. You gotta respect my pronouns. And then the people who conscript everybody was like, no, you're going to the front lines, buddy. We don't care. They have a whole entire woke division of those people.
That would be funny. I wonder, in your uniform, are wigs included? If it's all trans.
They have a lot of American taxpayer dollars that were gifted to them, but a lot of Ukrainian bureaucrats took a lot of it, so it might not be in the budget. Okay, right. It might not be allocated. But who needs wigs when you have mortars flying and absolutely wrecking havoc and destroying everyone on the front line? It's crazy to see that operation.
Sorry, Olga, we had enough money for your hormone therapy, but Vlad needed another line. So they're like, poor people. It's crazy.
But now again, what happened in Ukraine, I think, could very easily happen to Israel. I think it's fair to speculate this. I think it's fair to assume this.
It's a bit different just because Israel already has, like, for their military, you're required to serve. Everybody in the country is required to serve for 2 years, and most people serve, I don't know if it's most, but a good chunk of them serve a lot longer. So whereas in Ukraine, I actually don't know what the conscription was beforehand. I don't think they had nearly as large of a population joining the military at the time. So you have a bunch of, just normal civilian type people being forced to fight. I mean,
They've been putting guys that have essentially like bare bones training up to no training on the front lines and just cycling them through. It's just a total meat grinder.
right? Oof, yikes.
It's terrible. And they're up against the Russians, which are deeply entrenched with, their battle lines drawn, and they just have artillery to fire on them. So they just send these poorly trained dudes in there. They have no idea what they're doing or what they're running into, and oftentimes their life expectancy would be
like on D-Day, like you heard about American soldiers, like some of them were signing up at 16 lying, trying to get in because anything to save their country. There was like a major passion and people wanted to be there knowing that they were going to die, and you're not seeing that same sort of passion.
And I think to a certain extent in the early days of the war, that was very much the case in Ukraine. Today, I think that the morale has decreased exponentially just simply because it's been a year and a half of bloodshed. There's been virtually no gains.
I feel like the initial morale was a lot of propaganda, like the ghost of Kiev and like Snake Islands, like go ahead, bomb us. Right. Oh, that was all fake. Oh, okay, cool.
Well, it's just like America after 9/11. I never have been in a more unified country than I was in September. September 12th.
Yeah.
it was like everyone had each other's back, and then you realize, oh yeah, and then we killed a million innocent people for no reason because of that.
And we still don't know the numbers. We still don't know exactly how many people have passed away because of this conflict. Some people are estimating 200,000. Some people are saying 600,000. Those are lives that there's no getting back. That's an entire country devastated. As of course Volodymyr Zelensky announced, don't worry, we'll just open up the borders and of course have immigration come in and replace all those people. Don't worry, BlackRock and Goldman Sachs, they already have the contracts to rebuild everything that your tax dollars essentially paid for the destruction of. So it's such a crazy situation that it definitely deserves a lot more attention, as the corporate media reported on it a little bit, but Ukraine is losing. They essentially lost. Now, I think they're still going to be holding out until the next presidential election. And
do you mean American or Ukraine? Because they already canceled the Ukrainian election.
No, the American election. Okay. So I think because right now, if they lose the war, that's going to be essentially the nail in the Democrats' hopeful for presidency.
Do we know like what the if a conservative were in office, what's going to happen to the United States position in Ukraine or in Israel for that matter?
I say day one, as soon as a new administration comes in, they're like, okay, let's make a truce deal, let's make a deal here, and the war's over. I think that's going to happen.
I think the immediate pivot is to Israel. It's so crystal clear to me that the evangelical voting base for the GOP has them highly incentivized to stand with Israel to the end of time.
Very true. Yeah.
Whereas the Democrats were doing the same thing with Ukraine. Now that we have a new war, we get a GOP president. All of a sudden, everybody's standing with Israel, and the military-industrial complex continues to get fed.
That's so true. For the most part, that's so true. The only thing is, I would say, like conservatives in the red pill space, you're losing because they're actually becoming more pro, like anti-Jewish, pro-Muslim, and so. You're going to lose some conservatives. But yes, for the most part, it's such a swap. We had conservatives who were skeptical of Zelensky, whereas you have Democrats who are very pro-Palestine and freedom of Palestine, gays for Palestine.
Exactly.
Queers for Palestine. Yeah.
If only they knew. Go
if
there.
Only they knew.
Yeah, you're queer. Why don't you go to Palestine? Check it out. See if you like those laws.
Yeah.
It seems like this conflict just made everyone go crazy. Sorry, Amy, you were going to say something.
I was just going to say, I wish that I did have more to contribute. I'm definitely not as versed on like international, politics, policies, and especially when it comes to wartime. And one thing that's made it really difficult for me to even do research on this topic, and even when talking to people, is what you said, like truth is the first casualty in war. And it's like, for me, I'm just trying to talk to people from both sides who either have family or heritage from both sides. And even then, it's like people's their view is going to be based upon their paradigm, what their family has told them,
Right.
you know? And so it's really hard to get to an absolute truth.
Or,
no matter.
or their emotional involvement in all of this,
Exactly,
which is
that's what I
driving them
mean.
instead of logic and critical thinking. But
Yes.
don't worry, we have a lot of other degenerate and fat stuff to talk about later on
We're
Rumble.
going to be talking about the fatties again.
Yeah. So a lot of fat talk. Clint, watch out. But before getting into that, I want to talk about the Russian strategy. We have a couple of minutes before we actually go over to Rumble and then have a full, uncensored, unfiltered conversation. As of course, we are still on YouTube. We're still doing the little censorship digital gulag dance, being like, please don't kill us and get rid of our livelihood here on this particular broadcast. Please, social justice warrior who's wearing flip-flops and has blue armpit hair, please don't take us down. We'll be nice for now. But I want to talk about the Russian strategy here really quickly, and that specifically is their response to all of this was to entrench themselves, and a lot of the times they were retreating. But they retreated exactly to only a second or third line of defense, where they were able to launch mortars on the new Ukrainians who were coming in, taking over their territory, and were absolutely being bombed and obliterated to the point where the Russians then just easily moved back into their positions after they had everything exactly like clockwork set up for them. And that was the policy that was essentially the spring offensive that was carried out within the last few months and weeks that has led to tremendous human suffering inside of Ukraine and an absolute destruction of essentially majority of their males. As of course, there's a lot of foreign fighters fighting in Ukraine right now. There's fighters from Colombia. There's fighters from Asia. There's fighters all throughout Latin America with international mercenary groups participating in this larger proxy conflict between the United States and Russia. Now, I want to talk about Israel's strategy here because I think Israel also could respond in a particular way that would be more advantageous to it. But I think the main reason that they're not is because of the political turmoil that Benjamin Netanyahu is in, as of course many people have expected him to resign. Many people are not happy with Benjamin Netanyahu, are not happy with his leadership. He was hanging on by the skin of his teeth, if that's an actual saying here, or maybe I just made it up. I don't know.
That's a saying. I
Okay,
promise.
good. I like to make up my own words sometimes. But when you look at what Netanyahu's doing here, I think a lot of this larger conflict that is escalating inside of Gaza, that is escalating within Lebanon, within Hezbollah, within these Iranian forces and proxies that Israel is also bombing, as Israel has also launched a bombing campaign inside of Israel, inside of Syria. I think a lot of this is happening because of Benjamin Netanyahu, who essentially believes that he is fighting a larger religious war here, and knowing that the longer this goes on, the more he stays in power. And as soon as this conflict is over, he's probably not going to be in political office. Now, his response, I think, is disproportionate. I think it's wrong. I think Hamas absolutely committed war crimes, and I think they would have been dealt with by the Mossad, as of course the Mossad has a long record and history of assassinating people, taking people out, and also capturing people, and of course making them have their day in court and dealing with them in a extrajudicious way. They did this to, of course, all the Germans that went to Argentina, a lot of them. They did this to, of course, the Iranian rocket scientists and nuclear scientists as well that were working on a nuclear weapon. So a lot of people say, no, Israel needs to do this. I think, again, a more measured response would have been directly going after these people. Now, it's easy to armchair quarterback this, but I think with such high stakes, with so many different countries getting involved here, with Turkey even saying that they would invade Israel, I think a measured approach would have been the better approach, in my own personal opinion. But who knows? I could be wrong.
Well, this is actually a great question for Lauren because of your background as both a Jewish woman and a lawyer. The reason that Netanyahu was facing ouster. He was facing prosecutions for corruption, and he tried to put the judiciary underneath the Knesset and basically get rid the nation of its division of power.
The Supreme Court.
Yeah. So it seems to me like he had a lot of incentive for this war to go very, very hot. And has that crossed your mind at all?
I mean, yeah, it's difficult to say whether or not somebody would be so eager to maintain power that they'd be willing to kill basically everybody that they have power over.
It's a dark thought, but it's not the first time in history that's happened.
Not the first time in history. Definitely not. Jews know that. that being said, it's also the largest killing of Jewish people since the Holocaust. So you're saying a measured response. Well, the response that Luke, you were just describing is what we have been doing, or what Israel has been doing, since its creation. But this is literally the largest attack that has ever been placed upon the Jewish people in Israel since the 7-Day War. And to some extent, it feels like there needs to be an escalated response. That being said, to the extent that Netanyahu is saying, that seems a bit extreme. That being said, I keep saying that, but that's part of Israel's whole military strategy, is going balls to the walls. So that's why they forced all of their youngins to join the military for 2 years. That's why they're so intense. So it's just very
But that
difficult.
also creates kind of a radicalization program, especially if you're not that considerate of civilians, and the more civilians get killed, that radicalizes more individuals. So I think if you really want to deal with this problem, you got to go out of your way. You got to inconvenience yourself, and you got to make all the efforts to make sure that civilian lives are respected. And I think, as some Israeli politicians admitted, the objective here is not to get rid of Hamas, it's to get rid of Gaza, as they're flattening a lot of the infrastructure there and essentially want it to be a tent city, which it's kind of messed up in my opinion.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
See, the thing is, like, it's crystal clear to me that they could do that. They could take out all of Gaza. The issue, other than the moral...
But why won't they go after the Hamas guy? The Hamas guy is like a billionaire living in Qatar. There's so many, Hamas members. Sorry, Clint, I cut you off. But there's so many prominent Hamas members. Just no one's talking about Qatar for some reason, especially the right-wing influencers, where all the Hamas representatives are in right now, just hanging out, no problems at all.
What I heard was that Netanyahu was actually funneling the funding to Hamas through Qatar. So it's not at all clear to me that Hamas is it's obviously an enemy of the Israeli people. I'm not at all certain that it's an enemy of Netanyahu and the more hardline, Zionists within Israel. And I think that's really what needs to be answered. You need serious answers as to October 7th. You need to know what the hell happened. How could you have and then if you're not going to get those answers, but then you're going to turn to the same people that were responsible for security and just say, do whatever you think is best. It's like, well, you guys have already proven that you're inept. So why should I entrust you with that? And that's the exact same thing that we did after 9/11. We turned over all of our power to George freaking Bush, who allowed the largest terrorist attack in American history to happen. And then we said, hey, go blow up as many nations as you feel like for the next 15 years.
Yeah, and that's how we got ISIS, and that's how we got the TSA. And I honestly don't know which one's worse.
Very good point. They're both pretty horrible. Before we move on to Rumble, we got a super chat here by I'm Not Your Buddy Guy saying, I usually root for peace, but one thing to always consider is at what cost... Hold on, this damn comment section. Hold on. This damn thing keeps jumping around here. Okay. At what cost global communism may end war, but would it be worth it?
Would it be worth it?
Would it be worth it? Would it be worth it, Clint?
If I understand the question properly, I don't think there's this really big mistake to believe that you're going to be able to bomb an idea out of everybody that holds it. It's just not realistic. We've learned this with communism. The best way you defeat communism is not with hot conflict. It is without competing these people, because they don't believe in prices, for God's sakes. There's no reason that the CCP and China should be eating our lunch. The reason they are is because we're too much like China. We have to differentiate ourselves. We have to embrace property rights in the free market and capitalism. If we were to do that, then we could just demolish China, but we don't. We're like them, and that's the whole reason that now we're escalating towards a hot war to defend Taiwan. The truth is, Taiwan could defend itself, because all of those chips, the whole reason that the CCP and America want Taiwan is because those factories are they produce, I think, 75% of the most advanced computer chips on Earth, and if China or anyone were to attack Taiwan, they can just blow those labs up, which makes the entire endeavor worthless. So I think that they'll be able to defend themselves. America needs to get out of it. They're escalating the tensions. I don't even know where I started.
We gotta move on really quick to Rumble. I'm just gonna read off one more super chat before we go off here, and that is from John Doe, who said, "Relax, guys, everything will be all right. I just saved a bunch of money on my car insurance by not having one." Thank you for your super chat, John Doe. We also have other individuals who super chatted through mysuperchat.com. We're gonna be reading that on, of course, rumble.com/wearechange. If you haven't made the